Good morning and welcome to 365 Days of Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 70, easy multiple of 7. So this is a day I'm going to tell a story from my own life, my life as a steward. And man, we've been having so much rain recently. It's in California, it's kind of crazy how much. There were years where it used to be like this, many, many inches of rain, but this year is definitely another one of those years where we just end up with storm after storm after storm to the point where the roots in the ground begin to get loose because things are so muddy and whole trees just fall over, roots and all. We've had bursts of wind so hard that trees have just snapped in half. More intense storms than I can remember, and longer cold spell than I can remember living here. And I've lived here now for going on 17 years I've lived here, going on 18, right here on this property. So kind of an intense winter. And interestingly, in January of 2022, there was a volcano that erupted underwater in the ocean near Tonga, blew particulate 35 miles up into the atmosphere. Now, that's quite a ways. And it's so far up into the atmosphere that it has the ability to really alter the temperature and the climate. So that's what we're dealing with a little bit right now, I think, is a cooling down effect due to that volcano. What does that say to me? We have definitely been in a warming trend for a number of years. And from a geologic standpoint, as I remember from my geology classes, we were supposed to be going into a cooling trend during these years. And because of all the CO2 emissions, greenhouse gases, we've gone into a bit of a warming trend. But that particulate, I think, has cooled things down. Now, I just look at that and I think maybe the Earth is incredibly intelligent and able to respond to the changes that it itself is experiencing as things go on. Perhaps it was a little uncomfortably warm, and so, if it is a conscious being, the Earth, Gaia, as some people would call it, let out a little volcanic ash high up into the atmosphere, and we end up with a cooling effect. Anyway, I like to believe that that's true, and that's pretty cool, that Mother Nature and natural law wins out overall in the end. I think it does. Anyway, water. Water is a pretty cool medium, and it's a precious, precious thing on the planet. It's what brings life to everything. Think of a desert, nothing out there. Dry, very few plants. Rain comes and seeds that have been lying dormant perhaps for years, decades, sometimes centuries will spring into life. It just takes that bit of water. Water is an incredible medium to explore and to immerse yourself in. And I feel very lucky to have gravitated toward water at an early age. My parents told me the story that at the age of 2, when we were visiting my grandparents in Florida, Vero Beach, Florida, I crawled off the diving board at the place that we were staying and just ended up in the pool. And my mom came running out of the room that we were in with nothing on above her waist, thinking that she was going to be saving a drowning child. And here I had doggy paddled over to the side of the pool and was in no problem at all. So I seem to have had kind of a natural inkling to get into the water. And I was a swimmer for quite a long time, beginning part of my life, competitive swimmer, even swimming, doing practices every night during the weekdays. Crazy. So I had a great comfort level in the water and in the ocean as well, despite having a fear of big fish with big teeth, sharks. And we used to go to Florida a lot and body surf, raft, surf. Didn't surf on surfboards much. We did have one board that we used a little bit, but the fiberglass was coming out through the top of the board, and anytime you'd lay down on it, you'd end up with fiberglass in your belly and chest, which I did not like at all. And so we used to go to Florida a lot. The water thing was pretty nice. There was one guy, lifeguard down there, who ended up taking us out scuba diving for the first time, me and my two brothers. And he brought 2 tanks out. We kicked our way out to a shipwreck on 2 different rafts with 2 scuba tanks, and he would take one of us down at a time. And so at a really young age, I was allowed to scuba dive with no instruction, except not to come up too fast. And it just opened up an incredible world to me, which went on and has continued to go on through my life. But I wanted to touch on something that happened in Florida while I was there. And I was in 6th grade. I joined the Junior Zoologist Club. I'd gotten into bird watching. And my grandmother knew a gentleman who lived in Vero Beach. His name was Herb Cale. And Herb Cale was, I think he was president of the Audubon Society in Florida. And every winter we were down at my grandparents in Florida, every winter the Audubon Society did a bird count. And people would go all over the place to various, spots around the entire state to see how many species of bird they could see. And Herb, being in Vero Beach, his target area was Vero Beach. Being an avid bird watcher, he was one of the guys that would start off very early in the morning, before the sun was up, in the dark, go out and catch the hooting of owls to add that to the list, and then off to various places because he knew where to find birds that you would find nowhere else. Now, as a steward, I think it's really important that you know the other living things that you're sharing the planet with as much as you can. You get to know them, just like you'd get to know a friend or another family, just like you'd get to know people from another part of the world. I think it's important to get to know as many other species as you can, to understand their habits, to understand what it entails for them to live and procreate and to do well, to understand the purpose behind each and every species, for there is one. Mosquitoes and fleas and ticks and gophers and varmints included. They all have their purpose and place. Bird watching, I think, is a wonderful place to start to hone one's observation skills. And observing wildlife in the out of doors can be such a beautiful thing to do. There's a lot of people that really don't think, animals are that conscious. And in my experience, they are incredibly conscious, and each one has its own particular intelligence because it's different than ours. Senses are extreme and different avenues, different directions. And this makes for an incredibly diverse and interesting world. Bird watching is something, birds are pretty easygoing. They only fly so far in order to get away from danger. They stay in view most of the time, and they make calls to each other throughout the day. There's a wonderful series by John Young, Jon, and he has a series, a tape audio series called Bird Language, which is very interesting, spot on how birds communicate and what you can understand as you hear their calls. Anyway, Herb Kale was pretty incredible to go out with, and he would take me out on those Christmas bird counts and just be me and him driving around from place to place. And I remember I remember seeing Everglade kites with him, which is kind of an unusual species of bird, and a predatory bird. And then also there was a snail-eating kite, as I remember. I can't remember the name exactly, but he knew exactly where to go. And he knew the birds, the actual individual birds that we were going to go see when we go out there. It was a nesting pair of Everglade kites and another nesting pair of this snail-eating kite. I don't know if you can hear the rain in the background, but we just had a little downpour right now. And then, there were just hundreds of other species that we see in an individual day. And, I think in this existence, this experience as a human, we want to expand our awareness, extend our understanding of things. And again, when in a single day you can witness hundreds of different species, kind of tune into them a little bit. Check out their markings, see their flight pattern, beak size, what their talons look like, their feet. Do they have 3 toes forward and 1 back, 2 forward and 2 back? Are they webbed? What do they look like? What do their beaks look like? Are they curved over, top beak? Do they cross over the top and the bottom? Are they nut-crushing beaks? Bug-eating beaks? What do they have? So Herb kind of extended to a certain extent what Barry was already working with me on, which was to understand, see, observe, and appreciate the diversity of life. Now, we can do that almost anywhere. Even in cities, we have a number of species that typically inhabit any urban landscape that we've created, from mice and rats to pigeons, pigeon hawks, or peregrine falcons. They're in there. There's tons of different insects as well, and spiders. And none of them are that scary. That's another thing, that it's just like, get to know these other critters and see that they're out there doing the same thing that we're doing. Living, trying to find something to eat in any given day, having a safe place to rest and stay warm. And, so many species like to play. And that's a really wonderful thing. I mean, if you ever have met some person that doesn't know how to play, they're serious about everything. What a thing to have to deal with. Now, how do you get them out of it? Anyway, let's finish with that. Play is really important. When this thing ends and you're done, please go figure out a way to have fun with your friends or family. Thanks for joining.